Rick Ross spent nearly 20 years telling the world he was living on a different level. He built his image around massive wealth, luxury cars, giant estates, private jets, and a lifestyle most people could only imagine. This is the same guy who made being rich the center of his brand. That is why the internet exploded when photos surfaced showing Ross flying in economy class. Seriously, take a second and think about that. Rick Ross, sitting in economy, tray table down, regular passenger vibes and all. The reaction online was immediate, and people could not stop talking about it. We are going to break down exactly what happened, along with Ross's response, which might be one of the most unexpected reactions anyone could have given. But the flight situation is only part of the story. At the same time these photos were making the rounds online, another issue was getting attention. Reports started circulating that concert ticket sales were struggling, and not just by a little. Promotions were being offered, including buy one get one free deals, yet many seats were still available. Think about that for a moment. Tickets were being heavily discounted, and a lot of people still were not rushing to grab them. Some fans were even saying, "No thank you." That is the part that really got people talking. What makes this story even wilder is where Ross once stood financially. At his peak, he was widely reported to be worth somewhere around $100 million. We are talking about one of the biggest names in rap during his era. Yet now, social media critics are comparing those glory days to recent headlines and asking some tough questions. How does someone go from the top tier of hip-hop success to becoming the subject of endless jokes online? Where did the momentum go? And does any of this change how people view the image Ross spent years building? Those questions are driving this entire conversation. Before getting into the recent headlines, it is important to understand just how successful Rick Ross was during his strongest years. Between roughly 2012 and 2016, several outlets estimated his net worth somewhere between $75 million and $100 million. That was not just money from making songs. His income was coming from multiple streams at the same time, which is exactly what helped him build such a powerful business empire. His Maybach Music Group label became one of the most talked about brands in hip-hop. The roster included artists like Meek Mill, Whale, and Gunplay, all of whom helped generate major attention and revenue. The label partnership with Warner Brothers brought serious business opportunities, while his earlier relationship with Def Jam had already positioned him for long-term success. His albums were performing well, streaming numbers were strong, and his live shows were drawing large crowds. During that period, people genuinely wanted to see Rick Ross perform. The music was only one piece of the puzzle, though. Ross constantly spoke about his Wingstop investments, and unlike many celebrity business ventures, this one appeared to be a smart move. Reports suggested he owned more than 24 Wingstop locations at one point. As the company expanded across the country, those restaurants became a significant source of income. This was not just celebrity branding. It was real business infrastructure generating real revenue. On top of that, Ross secured endorsement opportunities and built partnerships that increased both his visibility and earnings. One of the most notable was his connection to Bel Air Champagne, a brand that became closely associated with his image. The partnership helped strengthen his business portfolio while keeping his name in the spotlight. Then there was the ultimate symbol of the Rick Ross lifestyle, the famous Promised Land estate in Fayetteville, Georgia. Calling it a mansion almost feels like an understatement. The property features 109 rooms, one of the largest residential pools in the state, a go-kart track, and huge stretches of land. The estate has reportedly been valued at around $10 million, and Ross purchased it for roughly $2 million back in 2010. Looking back, that move stands out as one of the smartest real estate decisions of his career and became a powerful visual representation of the larger-than-life image he spent years creating. At his peak, the picture looked almost untouchable. Rick Ross had a successful record label, multiple business ventures, a growing Wingstop portfolio, a famous mansion, strong touring revenue, and endorsement deals bringing in even more money. By most reports, he was genuinely wealthy. The larger-than-life boss image was not just talk. There was real success behind it. So how did things go from that level of success to the situation people are debating today? That is where the story gets interesting. A lot of observers point to one major issue: the difference between building wealth and displaying wealth. Those are two completely different strategies. Building wealth means creating businesses, investments, and systems that can continue producing income over time. Displaying wealth is focused more on showing success through luxury purchases and a high-profile lifestyle. Throughout much of his career, Ross became known for putting a huge spotlight on the luxury side of things. His image was built around making sure everyone saw the cars, the jewelry, the houses, and the expensive experiences. That approach helped strengthen his brand, but it also came with enormous costs. Take the car collection, for example. Over the years, Ross became famous for owning multiple Rolls-Royces, Bentleys, luxury SUVs, custom vehicles, and other high-end rides worth huge amounts of money. We are not talking about a couple of nice cars sitting in a garage. We are talking about an entire collection that became part of his public identity. Every new purchase generated headlines, social media posts, and conversations about just how much money he appeared to have. The vehicles were not only transportation, they became symbols of the lifestyle he wanted people to associate with his name. Then there was the jewelry. Ross spent years showing off custom chains, luxury watches, and diamond-covered pieces that carried eye-popping price tags. Some of these items reportedly cost more than what many people earn in an entire year. The collection became another major part of his image. Whether in music videos, interviews, performances, or online posts, the message was always clear. Success was meant to be seen, but the real challenge may have come from maintaining the overall lifestyle. Owning a massive estate sounds incredible until the bills start arriving every month. A property as large as the famous Promised Land estate requires staff, maintenance, utilities, security, repairs, and constant upkeep. Those expenses do not disappear when business slows down. They continue month after month, creating a steady stream of costs that must be covered regardless of how much new income is coming in. Now add luxury travel, business expenses, recording costs, payroll obligations, property maintenance, and other day-to-day spending into the equation. Suddenly the numbers become much larger than many people realize. Even someone who earns enormous amounts of money can face challenges if expenses keep climbing at the same pace. That is what makes this conversation so fascinating. A lifestyle designed to look bigger, flashier, and more impressive can become incredibly expensive to maintain over time. Another reason people are paying attention to these recent headlines is because luxury and status have always been central to Ross's public image. He did not simply present himself as successful. He built an entire brand around being the ultimate boss. The expensive cars, giant properties, private travel, and luxury purchases were all part of a carefully crafted image that became instantly recognizable across hip-hop culture. Because that image was so heavily tied to wealth, every new headline now attracts extra attention. When someone spends years promoting a larger-than-life lifestyle, people naturally compare current events to the image they remember. That is why discussions about flights, ticket sales, and finances spread so quickly online. Fair or not, the public often holds celebrities to the standards they set for themselves. Over the years, Ross frequently used luxury as a way to separate himself from the competition. His music, interviews, and social media content often emphasized financial success, exclusivity, and living at a level most people could only dream about. The message was clear. He was operating in a world of wealth and status that few could match. That image helped make him one of the most recognizable personalities in hip-hop. But it also means every challenge now gets examined under a much brighter spotlight. Are you seeing the pattern here? Because this is exactly why the next part of the story got so much attention online. When a public figure spends years building an image around luxury, exclusivity, and operating at a level few people can reach, every detail starts getting examined closely. The image becomes part of the brand. So when something happens that appears to clash with that image, people notice immediately. It stops being just a travel story and becomes a much bigger conversation about perception, branding, and public expectations. That brings us to the economy-class photos that completely took over social media. The images showed Rick Ross flying on a commercial airline, sitting among other passengers on a standard flight. Under normal circumstances, this would not be a major story at all. Millions of people fly commercial every day. But Ross is not just any traveler. For years, he built a public image centered around luxury transportation, private aviation, high-end vehicles, and a larger-than-life lifestyle. Because of that history, the photos spread incredibly fast. The internet wasted no time reacting. Memes started appearing everywhere, social media users began sharing jokes, and comment sections filled up with people debating what the photos really meant. Some viewed it as no big deal, while others saw it as a surprising contrast to the image Ross had promoted for years. The discussion quickly grew beyond the flight itself and turned into questions about his current status, business ventures, and overall brand. What made the moment especially viral was that people began connecting it to other headlines that had already been circulating. Discussions about ticket sales, business performance, and public perception were already happening online. Then the flight photos arrived, and many social media users started linking all of those topics together. Suddenly, the internet was creating its own narrative and asking questions that spread faster than anyone could control. Naturally, people wanted to hear Ross's side of the story. Once the photos gained traction, he responded with an explanation that immediately became a major talking point. According to Ross, his private jet was unavailable because it was receiving a Starlink installation and related upgrades. That was the reason he chose to fly commercially at that particular time. The explanation instantly sparked another wave of discussion. Some supporters accepted it and argued that there was nothing unusual about using a commercial flight while an aircraft was undergoing work. Others were much more skeptical and began debating whether the explanation fully addressed the questions people were asking. Social media turned the response into a story of its own. A major point raised by online commentators involved alternative travel options. Many people noted that private jet charter services exist specifically for situations when a personal aircraft is unavailable. Charter flights are widely used throughout the aviation industry and can provide temporary access to private travel. Because of that, some users questioned why a commercial flight was chosen instead. Those conversations quickly gained momentum and became part of the larger debate surrounding the incident. Others pointed out that commercial airlines also offer premium seating options such as business class and first class. That observation fueled even more speculation online. Again, none of this proves anything by itself, but it shows why the internet became so fascinated with the story. Once people started analyzing every detail, the discussion grew larger and larger with each passing day. The response across social media was relentless. Comment sections filled with jokes, theories, reactions, and side-by-side comparisons to Ross's long-established luxury image. For many users, the story was not really about an airplane seat at all. It was about the contrast between a public brand built around high-end living and a moment that appeared, at least to some observers, to be much more ordinary. That contrast became the center of the entire conversation. What really kept the story alive, though, was the confidence behind the explanation. Instead of ending the debate, the response seemed to create even more discussion. Supporters defended him, critics questioned the details, and everyone had an opinion. The internet thrives on moments like that. A single photo turned into days of non-stop conversation, and before long, the flight itself became one of the most talked about celebrity moments of the year. The attention was no longer focused only on where Ross was sitting. It was focused on what that moment might say about the image he has spent years building. One reason the response generated so much attention was the tone behind it. Instead of treating the situation as a lighthearted moment, Ross came out strongly in defense of his explanation. He emphasized the upgrades being made to his aircraft and highlighted the Starlink installation as part of the reason for flying commercially. The explanation itself became a major topic of discussion, and the more it was talked about online, the more opinions started flying from every direction. For many observers, the debate was no longer about the airplane seat. It became about perception. Some people felt the explanation made perfect sense, while others argued that it raised even more questions. Either way, the conversation kept growing. Social media users analyzed every detail, turned it into memes, and transformed a simple travel photo into a full-blown internet spectacle. But as much attention as the flight story received, another issue has arguably generated even more discussion around Rick Ross's current standing in the entertainment world. That issue is concert ticket sales, and this is where things become especially interesting. Reports and online discussions have pointed to challenges in selling tickets for some recent shows. Compared to the peak years of his career, demand appears to be facing a different reality today. That is not uncommon for artists who have been active for decades. Music trends shift, audiences change, and the industry constantly evolves. Still, because Ross built such a massive brand during his prime years, every sign of slowing momentum attracts significant attention. One of the biggest talking points involved promotional offers that were used to help drive attendance. At one point, reports circulated that fans could take advantage of a buy one, get one free ticket promotion. The offer immediately became a hot topic online. Not because ticket promotions are rare, they happen throughout the live entertainment business all the time, but because of how closely Ross's image has always been tied to exclusivity, luxury, and premium status. Think about it from the perspective of the internet. This is a rapper whose brand has long centered around abundance, success, and operating at the highest level. So when people saw headlines involving discounted tickets, many immediately viewed it as a surprising contrast to the image they had associated with him for years. Fair or not, that contrast became headline material almost overnight. The real challenge was that the promotion itself became part of the story. Instead of discussions focusing entirely on the concerts, many conversations shifted toward what the discounts might indicate about demand. Online critics jumped on the opportunity, supporters pushed back, and social media once again turned a business decision into a viral debate. What makes the situation even more complicated is that there is rarely one single reason behind changing ticket sales. Entertainment trends are influenced by many different factors, and several of them appear relevant here. First, there is the issue of cultural momentum. Rick Ross remains a recognizable figure in hip-hop, but the music landscape today looks very different from the one that existed during his peak years. New artists have emerged, new sounds dominate streaming platforms, and younger audiences often gravitate toward performers who are currently driving the biggest conversations. That does not erase Ross's accomplishments, but it does create a more competitive environment than the one he enjoyed during the height of his success. Second, there is the challenge of maintaining a long-running public image. For years, Ross built a brand around luxury, confidence, and larger-than-life success. That image helped make him one of the most recognizable personalities in rap. However, when stories emerge that appear to clash with that image, whether involving travel, business decisions, or ticket promotions, they naturally attract extra scrutiny. The stronger the brand, the stronger the reaction when people believe they are seeing something different from what they expected. Another factor is how audiences connect with artists over time. Different performers build fan loyalty in different ways. Some are known primarily for hit records, some for live performances, some for storytelling, and others for the overall lifestyle and image they project. Ross's career has always been closely associated with creating a vision of success, ambition, and luxury living. That formula helped him stand out and build a powerful brand for many years. Because of that, public conversations about Ross often extend beyond the music itself. Fans and critics alike tend to discuss the full package: the business ventures, the lifestyle, the public image, and the career moves. When any one of those areas becomes a trending topic, it often influences how people view the others as well. That is why the current discussions have become so intense. The flight photos, the ticket promotions, and the broader questions about relevance have all merged into one larger online narrative. Whether those criticisms are fair or exaggerated is up for debate, but there is no question that people are paying attention. And once the internet senses a shift in momentum, it tends to amplify every headline, every rumor, and every public appearance far beyond what anyone originally expected. The key thing to understand is that much of Rick Ross's public appeal was built around the image he projected. Fans were not only following the music, they were also following the lifestyle, the luxury, and the larger-than-life persona that became his trademark. That approach helped him stand out in a crowded industry and turned him into one of the most recognizable figures in hip-hop. The challenge with image-driven branding, though, is that it depends heavily on public perception. When the image is strong, it can be incredibly powerful. But when people begin questioning parts of that image, the conversation can shift very quickly. That is why recent headlines have attracted so much attention. For many observers, the story is not just about one flight or one concert promotion. It is about whether the public perception that surrounded Ross for years is changing. Now let's talk about the business side, because that is an important piece of the puzzle. One of Ross's most talked about investments has always been his involvement with Wingstop franchises. For years, this was viewed as one of the smartest parts of his financial portfolio. While many entertainers focus almost entirely on music and endorsements, Ross gained attention for investing in businesses that had the potential to generate revenue outside of entertainment. At its strongest point, his Wingstop portfolio was often cited as an example of diversification done right. Restaurant franchises can be extremely profitable when locations perform well, management is effective, and the overall brand continues growing. As Wingstop expanded nationally, Ross's investment was frequently highlighted as a smart move that went beyond celebrity branding and into actual business ownership. However, running multiple franchise locations is far more complicated than many people realize. It is not simply a matter of owning the stores and collecting income. Franchises require ongoing oversight, staffing, operations management, marketing efforts, maintenance, and continuous reinvestment. Success depends on many moving parts working together at the same time. There are also countless factors that can affect business performance. Consumer spending habits change, local markets shift, operating costs rise, and economic conditions can impact customer traffic. Even successful brands face challenges from time to time. For someone balancing music, touring, public appearances, business ventures, and personal obligations, maintaining consistent performance across a large portfolio can become extremely demanding. In recent years, various reports and online discussions have raised questions about portions of Ross's business empire and whether some ventures have performed as strongly as they once did. While the full financial picture remains private, these conversations have added fuel to broader discussions about his current position in the industry. Combined with debates surrounding touring and public perception, they have contributed to a growing narrative that many people continue to analyze online. What makes this especially interesting is how different revenue streams can influence one another. If touring slows, music consumption changes, business investments face challenges, or market conditions become less favorable, the overall financial picture can look very different from what it did during peak years. That reality applies not just to entertainers, but to many entrepreneurs as well. When people connect these different pieces together, they often arrive at a larger conversation about the difference between wealth itself and the public display of wealth. That distinction has become one of the central themes surrounding the recent discussions about Ross. Financial success is often measured by long-term stability, diversified income, and assets that continue generating value regardless of public attention. Public displays of success, on the other hand, are designed to communicate a message. Luxury vehicles, expensive jewelry, private aircraft, giant estates, and extravagant purchases can all become part of a personal brand. They create an image that audiences immediately recognize. Throughout much of his career, Ross became one of the strongest examples of that kind of branding. Every luxury car, every mansion photo, every high-profile purchase, and every social media post reinforced the same message: larger-than-life success. It was a formula that worked incredibly well for years and helped turn him into a cultural icon. For a long time, the combination of hit records, business ventures, investments, and public visibility provided enough momentum to support that image. The music connected with fans, the businesses generated opportunities, and the brand remained powerful. But when public conversations begin shifting toward questions about finances, relevance, or business performance, people naturally start looking at the image through a different lens. That is why the current debate has become so fascinating to watch. It is no longer just about individual headlines. It is about the broader contrast between public perception and financial reality. Whether the criticism is fair or overstated, the discussion has evolved into something much bigger than a celebrity gossip story. It has become a conversation about branding, business, and what happens when a larger-than-life image faces real-world scrutiny. The economy class photo became much more than just a viral image. For many people online, it symbolized a larger conversation that had already been building for months. On its own, a celebrity flying commercial would not normally be headline news. But because Rick Ross spent years promoting a luxury-focused image, the photos sparked intense debate about perception, branding, and whether public expectations were starting to shift. The image gained even more attention after Ross addressed the situation directly. Responding to the discussion, he stated, "For the ones want to know where my jet at, obviously didn't get the memo. It's being updated with Starlink." That explanation immediately became part of the story itself. Supporters viewed it as a reasonable answer, while critics questioned whether it fully addressed the speculation spreading across social media. Either way, the response kept the conversation alive and ensured that people continued talking about the situation for days afterward. What makes this story so interesting is how dramatically the narrative has changed over time. At his peak, Rick Ross represented a version of success that inspired many people. Regardless of whether someone was a fan of his music, there was no denying the appeal of his rise. Here was someone from Carroll City, Miami, who built a major career in entertainment and expanded into business ventures, investments, and entrepreneurship. That journey resonated with a lot of people and helped establish him as more than just a rapper. His business moves often played a major role in that reputation. Investments in restaurant franchises, real estate holdings, and the development of Maybach Music Group all contributed to the image of someone trying to build opportunities beyond music. Those achievements became key parts of the story Ross told throughout his career, and they helped separate him from artists who relied solely on record sales and touring revenue. At the same time, another side of the Rick Ross brand grew larger and larger. The luxury cars, the massive estate, the jewelry, the private travel, and the constant displays of wealth became some of the most recognizable elements of his public image. For years, those symbols helped reinforce the larger-than-life persona that fans associated with him. It was a formula that generated attention, headlines, and endless conversation. Now, however, the discussion looks very different. The economy flight photos, questions about ticket sales, ongoing debates about business performance, and broader conversations about relevance have all merged into one larger narrative. Whether those criticisms are accurate, exaggerated, or somewhere in between, they have become impossible to ignore. Social media has connected every headline into a single story, and that story continues to generate massive engagement. One of the biggest themes emerging from the debate is credibility. Financial situations can change. Business ventures can succeed or struggle. Markets can rise and fall. Those things happen all the time. What often proves more difficult is maintaining the public's belief in a carefully built image once people begin questioning it. That is why so much attention is being paid to the contrast between the luxury-focused brand Ross spent years creating and the headlines currently surrounding him. For many online observers, the conversation is not really about one airplane seat or one ticket promotion. It is about what those moments represent. They see them as symbols in a larger discussion about celebrity branding, public perception, and the difference between projecting success and sustaining success over the long term. That is the reason these stories have spread so far beyond their original headlines. Whether Rick Ross can reshape the narrative remains to be seen. Many artists have reinvented themselves, adapted to changing industries, and found new ways to connect with audiences. The entertainment business is full of comeback stories, unexpected turns, and second acts. Ross has already demonstrated an ability to build businesses, create memorable brands, and remain relevant for years longer than many of his peers. Still, there is no question that this has become one of the most talked about discussions surrounding his career in recent memory. The debate has moved beyond music and into larger questions about image, influence, and public trust. As long as people keep discussing those topics, the conversation around Rick Ross is unlikely to disappear anytime soon. What do you think? Is this simply another viral internet moment that will fade away? Or does it mark a major turning point in how people view the biggest boss? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoy content like this, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives and breakdowns coming soon. See you in the next one.